I'm late to this one, I know. I was there day one for both Dying Light 1 and 2, but with so many big games coming out in 2025, Dying Light the Beast just kinda slipped away from me. I'm here now though, and after 5 hours of playtime, I have a lot of thoughts. Bear in mind that these are my first impressions, and as such are liable to change in the coming weeks. To give an all-encompassing and sweeping statement, the Beast is a mixed bag, leaning towards positive. It's built from the framework of Dying Light 2, so it can look, feel, and play very similarly to that game at times. However, tonally and narratively, the game is very similar to Dying Light 1, and the returning elements from 2 have been refined for a more grounded, gritty feel. So minor caveats aside, the game is pretty dang good. We're gonna get into the nitty gritty of it now, and we're gonna do it spoiler free. I'm planning on a proper review once I'm done with the game, which will cover spoilers, but if you're yet to play the Beast, you can watch this video without worry. And speaking of that proper review, here I'm going to be drawing a lot of comparisons to the previous games, whereas in the full review I'll make an effort to just talk about the game in its own right. I'm just taking things a bit more casually here, saying what I see, speaking from the heart, that sort of thing. With all that being said, let's dive into my first impressions of Dying Light the Beast, starting with the parkour. Arguably the most important aspect of Dying Light, I'm happy to say the Beast just about perfects it. It's the same system and mechanics as Dying Light 2's physical parkour setting, but tweaked to be more grounded without leaning so heavily into realism that it stops being fun. You gain less height from jumps across the board, but movement is snappier with most transitional animations playing faster and ending sooner. The only thing missing now is the function from Dying Light 1 where, as long as a ledge is below your head height, holding the jump button will have you quickly grapple up onto it instead of grabbing the ledge and doing the climb up animation. This can still happen in Dying Light 2 and the Beast, but it's not tied to a button press, instead being pretty random. Sometimes you will snap on top of the surface and keep on running, but sometimes the lower half of your body will get stuck and you'll have to sit through that animation. This doesn't happen nearly as often in the Beast as it did in 2, but regardless, it'd be nice to have that certainty of, if I press this button, I know this will happen. Though I do understand that might conflict with the functionality of the wall run, so maybe I need to just let it go. Speaking of animations, they're still using this funky vault animation from Dying Light 2. Not only does it not look that good on its own honestly, but it also doesn't flow into other animations like the far jump at all. They did create a new vaulting animation that does look good and does flow well into other animations, but I found that the game favours the old over the new. I know I'm nitpicking, but hey, animations are important, and the first game didn't have this issue, so I think it's fair to point it out. Minor nitpicks aside, the parkour is fun, fast, and fluid, and it pairs exceptionally well with the level design of Castor Woods. Of course, I'm not very far in yet, so I haven't seen a whole lot of what the open world has to offer. I've only really explored this town area and this campsite, so I can't speak on how well the player mechanics mesh with, say, the forests or the swamps. But I'm liking what I've seen so far. Buildings are densely packed together, but with the grounded parkour, you're not able to just leap between them mindlessly. You have to properly analyse the environment, especially at night time where things are much, much darker. More so than even the first game, I think. Speaking of nighttime, dark zones return from Dying Light 2, but they're handled a lot differently here. Volatiles no longer hide in them during the day, meaning you can explore them at any time. I still find myself waiting until night because muscle memory, but I believe enemy population stays the same regardless of when you enter. The main threats inside are these screamers. I'm not entirely sure what they do. I've been caught a couple times, but I'm pretty sure they just wake up the biters surrounding them. I don't think they draw in virals from outside, for example, but I could be wrong. Let me know. What's more is that they actually have patrol paths. They walk around the dark zone in a pattern you can watch and adapt to. You could probably sneak around them, but with the main objective being to acquire loot, I always just choke out all the biters before triumphantly stomping around, stuffing baked beans and leather scraps into my jeans. To be fair, I do believe virals were supposed to patrol like this in Dying Light 2, because, well, they do in older versions of the game. I imagine one of the many updates just broke the mechanic. And finally, to address a direct criticism from Dying Light 2, there is very little repeating level design here. These attics are a little similar, same with the smaller dark zones, but they're similar in the way a real place would be. I exist in the real world, why did I say it like that? The same can be said for the safe zones, which are handled in a way that blends the first and second games. Large safe zones, which are more secure in appearance and give you access to your stash alongside a bed, and smaller safe spots, which can be equated to Night Runner hideouts from the second game. Only here they still involve a little effort to set up, with the 2 hunting towers I've seen involving a small bit of parkour, like one where I had to park a truck underneath to get the height needed to gain access. Apparently I wasn't recording when I did this, so can you take my word for it? Thanks. And of course, the game is also visually stunning. While I long for the days of dedicated colour grading and art styles with a bit more source outside of just flat realism, I can't deny that the world of Castor Woods is great to look at, from the way light bounces around interiors to the high quality textures, and again just how dark and atmospheric it gets when the sun goes down. And last but not least, let's give a quick shout out to another of Dying Light's defining attributes, the combat. I'm also going to lump in a quick discussion on nighttime here, but we'll get to that in a minute. The combat is weighty and visceral, with animations and sound design very reminiscent of Dying Light 1. Blunt weapons bounce off of enemies with a satisfying crunch, while bladed weapons slice right through with some meaty sound effects. Some of the takedown sounds seem almost identical to those in Dying Light 1, which I thought was really neat. Even if they're just accurate recreations, I always get giddy when the game makes subtle callbacks to the first one. It really drives home the fact that this is a Kyle Crane sequel. One of the returning elements from Dying Light 2, one of the worst ones at that, is just how often enemies will grab you. It was overtuned then, and it still is now. The game will favour enemy grabs over your own actions 9 times out of 10. Try to kick a zombie away? Get grabbed, idiot. Try to swing your weapon to make some room? Get grabbed, idiot. Dodge a whole second before the grab should happen? Well, you get the idiot. I mean, people were very vocal about how much of a problem this was. I can't fathom why they brought it back, especially when paired with the frequency of stun locking. Yeah, this is also a problem. One power attack and you're subjected to, at minimum, 2 whole seconds of your inputs just not being registered. And if you're fighting a group, well, there's a pretty high chance another enemy will pull off another power attack, locking you in place for even longer. At this point, I'd rather just get grabbed. Again, the combat here is very fun, very satisfying, and oh so close to the quality of the first game. Actually, with the human combat being an objective upgrade over Dying Light 1, I'd say it's actually roughly on par, but there are still a few growing pains. Iron those out and we could have the perfect combat system on our hands. And to touch on the nighttime, this is where the term mixed bag really comes into play. Volatiles are treated near identically to Dying Light 2 in that they spawn everywhere. One of the early story missions takes place at night and has you crossing from one side of town to the other. Time does progress as normal and you can just wait it out, but the context of the mission is urgent, not to mention the cutscenes are clearly meant to take place at night. So you're trying to quickly get across town, but you'll come across a volatile every 20 seconds, and being unfamiliar with the environment, you'll often hit dead ends trying to sneak around and wind up caught. This was beat for beat my first night in the Beast. Try to reach the objective, get caught, run back to the only safe zone you've unlocked so far on the other side of town, repeat. Don't even try hiding in a building. Until you're bathing in UV light, they will zero in on your location. I'm sure the current volatile behaviour is fine when you're just free roaming outside a mission, but this was an awful first impression. I understand wanting to keep AI behaviour consistent, but for a main mission, the nighttime tutorial at that, the experience needs to be curated to an extent. Imagine if, when you're running to Killian's house with hack on, volatiles spawn like normal. It'd be incredibly frustrating, not to mention damn near impossible. So far, this is the one aspect of the game that makes me hesitate to recommend it, especially if you didn't enjoy Dying Light 2's nighttime. I've still enjoyed 90% of what I've played so far, but if you wanted to wait and see if the devs tweak this aspect in an update, I wouldn't blame you. But I did just mention the story, so again, without spoilers, let's quickly touch on that. To sum it up, I'm really enjoying it so far. The vibes are somber, subdued, very similar to the start of Dying Light 2 in all honesty. The similarities end there though, as the focus of this story remains on Kyle Crane. Both Dying Light 1 and 2 focused on the world around the main character. Rise and the GRE in 1, Survivors and Peacekeepers in 2. The Beast, however, keeps things deeply personal, and it's the kind of change the franchise needed to keep the story fresh. And speaking of change, a lot of the cutscenes here swap between first and third person perspectives. When I saw this in the trailers, I was really apprehensive, but I'm actually pretty happy with what I've seen so far. It doesn't take me out of the moment, break the pace, or ruin the immersion, and the animations and lip syncing are pretty good. There's still a certain charm to keeping the perspective in the protagonist's eyes for the whole experience, but now that the story is focusing heavily on the protagonist, it makes sense to let us see more than just his forearm. I don't want to say any more, both because I haven't seen very much and because I don't want to spoil anything. There's been some cool moments already, and I'm eager to see where things go from here. And on that note, I'm gonna go play some more. I'll be taking notes throughout my playthrough, and we'll get to work on the full review once I'm done with the main story. Hopefully that won't be too far away. I believe the game is significantly smaller than Dying Light 2, but we'll see. Feel free to sound off in the comments with your own thoughts. I'd love to get some discussion going on this divisive franchise. Keep it spoiler free though. I'd hate for someone to get spoiled under a spoiler free posting. Seen that happen one too many times. Thanks Reddit. That's all for now though. Thank you very much for watching, have a good rest of your day and a great rest of your week, and remember to stay human and fight for every last inch of the dying light lest you succumb to the beast within. I'm tired.